There's this unspoken rule in modern Christianity that if it isn't spontaneous, it isn't authentic. We've been discipled to chase the spiritual high, that moment when the music swells, the goosebumps hit, and you finally feel something. But let's be honest, those moments are rare. Most of the time, we're just tired. We're standing at a church pew or sitting at a kitchen table with a Bible and we feel absolutely nothing. We've been taught that ritual is dead religion, but I'm starting to think that's a lie. What if the motions aren't the problem? What if the motions are actually the only thing that keeps us from drifting away when our emotions decide to take a vacation? Today, we're talking about a word that makes most Protestants break out in a cold sweat: liturgy. We're asking if the very thing we've been running from is actually the anchor we've been looking for. My name is Nate, and I'm joined by Tony. Welcome to the Easy Approach.
Take it easy. Take it easy.
All right, everybody, welcome in to the Easy Approach. As always, I am Nate, and as always, I'm joined by my good buddy, Tony.
Hello, and thank you, listeners, for continuing to join us. And if this is your first episode, welcome. I think we have a pretty interesting topic today, right, Nate?
I think so.
Mhm.
This has been one that I've gone not back and forth on, but I've really had to have an arc from like the way I was raised to now and my way of thinking about this thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah. You know what we should do? We should talk about the thing we're going to talk about for 15 minutes and see. We can
Just go
have
in
people,
circles around it.
If you guys listen, you guys just comment and with your guesses and like a timestamp, and then
Exactly.
whoever's right can decide if we should cancel the podcast forever or not.
I mean, but what you're alluding to makes sense, because I could say that as a kid, I definitely had a different perspective. I definitely did not see the value. There were definitely, it's something that you're dragged along to do. And if, at least in the Christian world, if you're not a Christian and you're listening to this podcast, we definitely encourage it, and we're very grateful that you're here. We always say that we are not a Christian podcast, but this is a podcast done by Christians, right? We raised in the church, you're drug along, and to be a good Christian or to be, a good kid with Christian parents, you definitely, it almost feels like you're forced to participate. And for me, there was a big difference, a big amount of time before that, between that feeling and actually understanding the importance and like the internal value behind being forced to participate.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. All right, listeners, have you figured it out what we're talking about yet? We still haven't said it, right? I didn't say it.
Is there anything else that you want to give a hint about?
No. I'm putting
we've been tracking this one.
myself in the shoes of someone listening and being like, for goodness sake, like I'm turning this podcast off right now unless you tell me what it's about. Luckily, we, at the beginning of every podcast, we always have a little blurb, a little hook. So there's a title that they clicked on. There's a 30-second blurb they heard ahead of time.
The title's probably going to give it away. We probably
the whole
already.
Thing gave it away. The whole thing gave it away. Yeah. So we're talking about liturgy today.
Ooh, fancy word.
Liturgy, which is that's a $5 word for and I'll put it as simplistically as possible. It's like those ritual type things that you do in a church setting. So a good example of this for probably most of our listeners would be if you are identifying as a Christian, or if you had some experience in church in like America, probably you're a Protestant.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're a Catholic. Almost definitely you're not Eastern Orthodox, because we don't have a huge Eastern Orthodox representation here in the USA. It's mostly Protestant, some Catholic. But it looks like something like, let's say, communion, right? Or the Lord's Supper. That thing where in Protestant churches, this is like one of the last bastions of ritual or liturgy that we have like formally, and I'm making quotation marks with my fingers. You can't see me, but I am, for the word liturgy in Protestant churches. But it looks like, we all sit down, and even in Protestant churches, we have a very loose way of doing it. Maybe you all get together. Maybe you all grab your thing and go back to your seat. Maybe it's passed along and you pray with your family and whatever kind of words you want to say or whatever else. That's kind of like one of our last little items of liturgy, of the ritual kind of thing that we do. My background, Tony, was definitely like, because I was raised as a Protestant, Protestants are all about authenticity.
Yeah, relationship.
We're all about, at least these days, we're all about authenticity.
Yeah.
We're all about relationship. And liturgy, it can't be real because it's planned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if it's planned,
it's not authentic.
It's not genuine.
Yeah.
And so that was my perspective growing up. Definitely, is the realest stuff is the unplanned stuff. It's the spontaneous stuff, and that's genuine and that's real. And so I viewed liturgy as like kind of dead or dry, like lifeless kind of thing. And so even as I got a little older, and I kind of cringe at saying this now, as I got a little older, the Protestant church is very much like liturgy bad. We don't do liturgy except mostly communion and baptism.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
we got
those are the two big ones.
And but even like there's some people who are like, we don't even do that anymore because it's liturgy. Like, and what's the point? And I was definitely getting in that boat in like early Bible study stuff where I was like, look, like all of this, like it's about relationship with God, not just religion. And all these external things are just religion. It's just external stuff, and none of it means anything. Yep. Baptism isn't magic. The Lord's Supper isn't magic. So none of it matters. You don't have to do it. It's not important. Like that was my, like, it's not the thing that saves you, and therefore, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's not important. Doesn't matter. So I began thinking in those terms. Tony, do you have like a similar arc, or what was your perspective of this stuff growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up non-denominational, is what I'm air quoting, right? But it's definitely just, the epitome of Protestants, and a type of Protestant that wants as little to do with any liturgy as possible. Yes, we had communion for sure. But even baptism, like we had baptism, I was baptized as a kid, but it's so relaxed, right? And that in our culture that we grew up in the context that we grew up in, like I was in, someone's backyard in their swimming pool when I was like 8 or 9, maybe 10 years old, didn't really have a full understanding of what it was that I was committing or wanting to do by getting baptized in this person's backyard. But it's like, that culture, it's like we want it to be relaxed. We want it to be experiential. We want it to be, very positive vibes, and not just like this, hey, here's the rote in and out, day in and out thing that we always have to say, that's pre-planned. So absolutely, I relate completely to what you were saying.
Yeah, I think there's an irony there, because when you walk into a Protestant church today, what does the service look like? Just give me like a ballpark. What is like the beginning and the end? About how long is it, first of all?
Oh, well, if it's a good one, no more than 45 minutes, right?
I mean, 45 minutes to like an hour 15, like that's the, if it's like real streamlined. But we got a window. It's never like 4 hours.
Yeah. Oh, never.
It's always in that like that, an hour-ish, maybe an hour and a half. It's really pushing it, really generously, pushing it.
Mm-hmm.
But we almost all of them follow something pretty close to like it's like you go in, there's a song. They're immediately playing a song. And then there's a greeting. And then they play like 3 more songs. And then there will be a sermon.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go home, and maybe you can smatter something else in there, like maybe they take communion, maybe something along those lines. But there's like that is a liturgy. Like that is like a consistent thing we do. We all, and really, I think all of us, all human beings, have rituals.
Yes,
we just don't call them that.
Yeah,
dude, have you like identified any things that you do like really, really consistently, and it's like important for you to do them, or it gives you like a sense of like meaning or place or connection, or even like something you do for your health, like
Mm.
ritualistically?
I mean, without a doubt, in this season, the gym falls into that category for me, right? Like for my own, not just physical health, but mental health as well.
Tony's
Like,
he's a real gym rat. He's a
oh,
real lunch pail guy.
for sure, I'm huge. But I mean, without a doubt, that most of my life I've been athletic, but I've never been consistent as far as discipline in my fitness journey, right? And for those of you who have been with us since the beginning of this podcast, pretty sure our first conversation was talking about this, right? The discipline of hard things and making that a ritual in your life, not because of, oh, it's fun, or this is a really cool experience, but because we want to have discipline. We want to put ourselves in a spot where we're going to grow, no matter how easy or hard it may be. And so, without a doubt, I think that's a ritual that helps my life, and therefore also how I am around other people as well, by extension.
Yeah, totally. I found I don't know if everybody is I guess we call it creatures of habit, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And some people are like, I'm a creature of habit. I'm a creature of habit. And other people are like, no, I don't do habit. But I think everyone recognizes that habit is important.
Yeah.
So you're going to meet almost no one that says, no, I'm not a creature of habit.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they
Mm-hmm.
do say that, it's because they don't have good habits. Like they're not good at making good habits. But if I think all of us are creatures of habit. I
Yeah.
think it's part of what it means to be human is we're habitual creatures. And habit, like the way you form habit is often the things you do ritualistically
Mm-hmm.
or habitually.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I've been doing over the last, handful of years is really trying to hone in my mornings, because I've found that my mornings are terrible if I'm not intentional about them, and it often sets my whole day off on a really like uninspiring like trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do these days is I wake up and I do not allow myself. The first thing is I'm not allowed to doom scroll on my phone ever. Like that's a really important first step.
Yeah.
But I get up, I brush my teeth, I do a stretch routine, and I have a particular like mobility oriented stretch routine that I always do in the morning. And then I go sit outside and I spend time with God. I just spend time processing and meditating first thing. And then I hydrate and I have a really quick like bite of food, take certain supplements, and then I get some kind of cold exposure, whether that's a cold shower or like jumping into like a cold tub or something along those lines. And I do that very, very well, consistently, habitually. It's become a habit, but it's almost like a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about this. Like if it's something that gives me a sense of orientation. It's something that like, okay, if I do this, I'm set up to do the other things that I want to do. Multiple of those things are things that I don't feel like doing first thing in the morning, but it
Yeah.
sets me up to like, okay, I'm setting myself on this trajectory instead of whatever other trajectory. And I was thinking about like how we do this in broader culture, even like in sports, because you and I are both sports guys. We both play sports. We both enjoy watching sports and participating, whatever else. But it's like sports fans, we do so many weird ritualistic things. Like we all wear the same like uniforms and jerseys, and we have the chants,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have our like weird tailgate rituals, and it's like it's passion in a
Mm-hmm.
stadium, but then it's empty ritual when we look at a cathedral and go like, this is none of this matters. This is stupid. This is empty and it's dead.
Yeah.
And I do think it's the authenticity trap that Protestantism has fallen into, where like, is there a sense of truth to spontaneous action is genuine?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think there is, for better or worse, right?
Yeah, that's a good
Sometimes,
question. Mm-hmm.
yeah, sometimes the things that come like from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? So sometimes whatever's in your heart is going to be the first thing to come out. And that spontaneous thing is going to be the most genuine thing about what's sitting in your heart. Sometimes. So I think there can be some truth to the idea that spontaneous can indicate genuine. However, I don't think it necessarily follows that anything ritual is therefore worthless,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it comes down to not all actions are about authenticity. Some actions are about lining you up with where you want to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I interpret that is it's foundational, right? Like there are certain actions that if you lay down a good foundation, if you are intentional on a consistent basis with those actions, then what you're doing every day, hopefully, right? If you're having good habits and trying to cultivate those good habits as opposed to bad habits. Hopefully, you are building that foundation every single day or as many days as possible so that something new and productive in the direction that you want to go on gets built on top of that foundation. Right? That's how I interpret that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there is something to like what it means to be human, that we are ritual animals.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I think there's something very real about embodying your way into a new life.
Hmm.
In other words, you don't just think your way into a new life, you act your way into a new life, right?
Yeah.
I think that the concept behind liturgy, like the more I understand, and I really had to come around to this, where I got into studying the Bible and I was like, liturgy is completely worthless. Like all of it. Any ritual is completely worthless. And then I had to go a little bit deeper and then also start to understand a little more of human psychology, and then, try to act out these different, like without calling them rituals or liturgy in other areas of life, like learn that this is how I have to like habit stack, psychologically speaking. This is how I have to like habit stack my way into becoming a different person. So I think a lot of what liturgy is like spiritual habit stacking, like using physical cues to trigger mental states, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So the idea, and this is something I've slowly started to recognize in my own life. I think there are many times when life has left you beat down to the point that, like in a world that has an infinite amount of choices, liturgy takes the choices away and you just act out the thing. Like liturgy aligns you with I don't have the emotional energy to feel spiritual, but I'm going to act out this thing. I'm going to embody this thing and these words. And as you do that, I think repeatedly, again and again and again, it aligns you with a mental state that like it snaps it back into place. I feel like I'm word salading a little bit,
I mean,
but maybe
it
the
makes
best way of
sense.
thinking about it. Do you have any like music or songs or smells or anything that you like? You have that sensation, that smell, or that sound, or that song, or whatever, and it immediately brings to mind a bunch of other things.
For me, funny enough, especially music, when I hear Jack Johnson, this is a very random callback for myself because like I don't listen to Jack Johnson a whole lot nowadays. Like it's something
Mm.
that was like from a particular time in my life when I was in
Yeah.
college and I was studying a lot in coffee shops, and even when I was in Bible school studying a lot in coffee shops for hours and hours at a time. And like anytime I hear Jack Johnson, I'm like, oh, that brings me right back to my study days. And it really, in
Yeah.
a strange sense, those habits that I had in that season of life, which is going to be a little bit different than this season of life,
Mm-hmm.
it does like recall those to me. Like, right, it
Yeah.
brings it to the front of my mind. Like, oh yeah, I did
Yeah.
used to spend like 6 hours at a Starbucks, like consistently actually
Uh-huh.
paying attention to one thing, even though I didn't want to,
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it is Reliant K's album. And when I hear that song, I get snapped back to when I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And I was reading The Wheel of Time
Mm.
like late at night, listening to that album on loop, like the first book in The Wheel of Time, the Eye of the World. I was reading that book, listening to that, and that exact period of life, like exhausted from soccer practice and from doing homework for hours, sitting in my little upstairs, room up in Middle Tennessee. It snaps me like there, but it also snaps me to all the emotions of there that were connected with that time of life. And so it's like there's a physical thing, which is like a sound, the physical sensation, and it immediately aligns my body with a whole other like mental state.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is a lot about what liturgy is meant to do for us. Like it's not only the act of like realigning ourselves with something, that whether we feel the truth of it in the moment, we're aligning ourselves with the truth of the thing, but it's also stacking that experience onto the weight of all the other experiences that we've had in that moment or had during that act of like ritual or liturgy or whatever else. So for me, one of the things I have to do, or one of the ways I've learned to do this, is like Jesus didn't say when he was asked, how should we pray? He didn't say, pray whatever you feel.
Yeah, that's true.
He said, pray like this. And then he gave us a script. Like there's
The most repeated script ever.
Yeah. And it's a script. And I think it's a profound script.
Yeah.
Right. But it's a script. Like, for a long time, I'd be like, well, geez, no way. He would have never wanted us to literally pray the script, but he did literally say, pray like this. Mm-hmm. And so I, at this point in my life, going through all the ups and downs that I have, my family has over the last 8.5 years, and really closer to 11 years, I have had to come back to that script, the Lord's Prayer, the words that Jesus gave us, just thousands and tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 times at this point, because I've had to pray it multiple times a day to kind of realign, like I'm not feeling this and I'm not living this way, but I'm going to realign myself with the weight of the other 10,000 times I prayed this. And there's something that it does to change my mental and emotional and even like physical state in that moment.
Yeah.
Where like the moment where it's like, God, would you give me today my daily bread? Like the things I need for today, would you give them to me? And Father, would you lead me not into the test? Would you deliver me from the evil one, Lord, as I've asked again and again and again? It aligns me with all these other things. And is it ritual? Like, yes, but it's also like, I don't know the words to pray.
Yeah.
When I'm breaking down.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'm going to pray these words. And then slowly my brain is like, it's snapping into all the weight of these previous moments. But then it's also giving me the words to pray.
Yeah.
Like God, when God gave, I'm going to say like the equivalent of the Lord's Prayer. Not, and it isn't the equivalent of Lord's Prayer, but something in that vein to the Jewish people in Deuteronomy. The Shema, you familiar with that?
I'm not.
The Shema or the Shema. Yeah, it's hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is
okay.
one.
Yes, I'm familiar with that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. From Deuteronomy chapter 6, he gave them this section, and he said, I want you to write these words on your hand and on your doors, like I want you to write them here and here, so you see them when you look at your hand, and you see them when you pass through your door, and it's like a physical representation of the thing that I want you to align your lives with, because there's a sense of like, human beings forget.
Yeah.
we forget unless we're like physically reminded and like a part of what's happening. So he's literally commanding physical rituals, just like Jesus did.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, without a doubt, it's the same concept that we take notes even while on the podcast here, because we will forget. By we, I mean me. I will forget a thought if I don't write it down.
Is that what happened just now?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like, I was going to say something, and no,
Big
it's gone.
time. No, actually caught it. I actually wrote it down. But no, I do think that's fascinating, in that it's like, it's not just in this one spot where Jesus answered this direct question one time, right? A one-off or the exception, but it's repeated, that there have been multiple situations even before Jesus that God has made it clear that sometimes And if you know me at all, I harp all the time on the importance of internal versus external. And so I definitely don't want this to be a dichotomy, because I think that's what the point of this understanding healthy ritual is that you can have external without it being divorced from the internal. In other words, you can do something that's externally, you know what you should be doing, even though internally you're not feeling it that day, just like what you were saying, Nate, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with admitting, even if it's not spiritual, it could be in your family, it could be in a friendship, it could be in a relationship of, hey, like, I love you and I want the best for you and all these other things, but I need time to go sit in a corner and read my book right now, like, like, please don't take this the wrong way type of thing. Like, I need, like, you can have that external, you're showing something externally, even though you're not necessarily feeling it that day. It's the commitment to the external, regardless of where the emotions are, ebb and flowing that particular day or not. Right?
Yeah. 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 And then, okay, so I don't just want to be like, and that's why like everything should be like, everything should be ritual.
This is a pros and cons conversation for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, there are some really serious pros there, and I've had to reevaluate over time, especially as as I've come to understand how a human being changes psychologically and even physically. There's something about aligning yourself with where you want to go. But cons. Do you think there can be a danger to liturgy and leaning really hard on ritual?
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of connects to what I was just saying, the idea that if you do let there become an actual divorce between what you're actually doing with your actions, what's happening on the external, consistently and long enough divorced away from internal, from like actually feeling positive feelings, positive, like authenticity behind those actions, there can come a time when it's like, all right, here I am months and months into this thing, years and years into this thing, and I'm doing it because I know I should be, but I don't feel good. I don't feel the connection anymore. I don't feel the spark of life anymore. And so that's why I think it is so important that it's not internal only and it's not external only. You have to have both, so that you don't reach burnout that can potentially happen spiritually or in your relationships, like I was mentioning earlier. Because if you're really doing something over and over and over again, but you're not connecting with the heart of why you should be doing it, the good reasons you should be doing it, it can be really easy to fall into that trap of being not genuine, inauthentic, and not having the good emotions that prevent burnout, and prevent shutting down.
Yeah, I think that's super true. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus talks about how there's like, all right, like when you pray, he talks about praying and he talks about fasting and he talks about like giving money to the poor. He's like, when you do that, he's like, don't do it like the kind of people who just have what he calls vain repetition. He's like, just going through the motions and doing it for, or even doing any kind of like ritualistic or liturgical thing for self-benefit or whatever else. So he says, when you pray, don't do it like the rest of the world does it, or like the Greeks do it or whatever. And like loudly and just saying things that they have no idea what they're saying, and they certainly don't mean them.
Yeah.
But then also with the idea of fasting, which fasting is like very liturgical. Like that's very much a practice, and very much aligns your body with something and a direction and a trajectory that you want to go. But it's like when you fast, don't do it on the corner and like moaning, like I'm so hungry because I've been fasting.
Everyone look out at how good I am because I'm such a committed faster.
That's right. How are you feeling? Oh, pretty bad. Haven't eaten food in 3 days, fasting for the Lord.
You should be so impressed by me.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. As if I haven't done that before, done that kind of stuff and found some way to have self-benefit
Oh,
through
it,
my
it
sacrifice for God.
it takes one to know one, right?
That's right. I know you're a hypocrite because I am one too. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. It can become a vain repetition, like Jesus said.
And in
Like
that same light, it can become intentionally manipulative for
Yeah.
some people, and that that goes in a direction we've talked about not long ago, and that can get my blood boiling. So, but go on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think that is the vain repetition thing is why a lot of Protestantism today has this disdain for
Yes.
liturgy.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's seen the vain repetition side of it.
Yeah.
But there really is we human beings, we really like to oh, I see something I don't like about that. So I'm going to absolutely throw everything about this out.
Yep. Swing
indiscriminately.
from one extreme to the other.
Right? Like this bathwater is terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw this and the baby into the garbage. Yeah, throwing the baby out with the good.
It's sad, but I think it's so true. And I think that if you look at church history, which I know without a doubt, Nate, you have way more experience than I do, I think it's very clear. You see it a lot through church history, through the centuries and even decades of swinging from one extreme to the other because of whatever the issue was in that day and age, that it was such a repellent thing to them that they had to make this their whole identity, their whole they had to find a solution to this, that they do swing to that other extreme and they don't realize the new set of problems that they are creating for the next generation, so to speak, And I don't think that this is exclusive to church history. This is 100% present in politics, in society, in government. I hate to say it, but a lot of history guys, like the best history, if you are a history major, the best way to do it is to read from so many different sources so that you can understand what those extremes were on both sides. Because if you're just reading from one source, you're just taught from one professor, from one perspective, you're always going to get that skewed extreme, hey, I am handling the problems of today, not realizing what problems you're creating or not resolving for tomorrow. I think it's all over the place. It's rampant.
Yeah. And so that kind of begs the question, how do you keep the bones or the structure without losing the breath?
That's a great question.
Or the spirit.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's not easy. That's the first answer. And so many of us, our default, we want to, a lot of the reason why we're creatures of habit, right? That I could be wrong here, but this is my perspective especially, is a lot of the reasons why more of us are creatures of habit than not is because we want that comfort. We want to be in our comfort zones. We want the easy choices. We want the not difficult day-to-day lives. And I totally understand that. There's nothing wrong with that desire, but it totally can put us into that situation if we're not aware of what we're unintentionally doing.
Yeah, man. I wish there was a magic pill that would just be like, yes, take this pill and you will constantly find the healthy middle ground.
Yeah.
In all the things. I feel like so much of our conversations come down to like, all right, how do you ride the line between being a dummy way over here and being a dummy way over there?
Because they're both dummies.
Right. Well, and you can say dummy, but then it's so easy for me to be the dummy in one moment or another moment.
Yeah.
I think it is to say, if you have rejected, like me, if you've rejected liturgy because it feels inauthentic.
Mm.
It's like, okay, you value authenticity. That's good. The the solution is not to throw liturgy out entirely. Like you are missing a whole layer of like the embodiment of truth
Yeah.
that God values immensely. And this is where I think baptism was the one that really made me reevaluate. And there was a lot of things that could have made me reevaluate. When Jesus goes, "Do this in remembrance of me,"
Mhm.
right? In Luke 22,
Yeah, that's the big one for me.
stuff like that would get it through my head. Like it's a command, right? The Greek word there, if I remember correctly, is poieit. I'm not so great with my Greek pronunciations. It's in the imperative.
Mm.
Like the tense of the Greek verb is imperative. So Jesus is saying, do this. Like, do it. But the other big thing was like, it's reading, it was reading Matthew 28 for me. It's like the Great Commission, like go and make disciples for all the world. I'm like, yes, that really, really matters. It's like, teach them to do everything I've taught you to do. And I'm like, yes, I believe that. And it's like, and baptize them. I was like, I don't get that one though. I don't know, Jesus.
I have to do that every time.
I think you maybe, I don't do that one every time. Yeah, I don't think that one's so important.
Yeah.
And I really had to like wrestle with it and be like, what? Okay, why does Jesus consider it so important when I don't at all? And then reading Romans 6, where Paul's like, it doesn't make sense for you to sin anymore because you were baptized. And I'm like, I don't understand that at all. Like, why is that valuable? And honestly, we should really do a podcast episode on baptism sometime.
Without a doubt.
Because that's a really, really fascinating conversation that I've come to love and appreciate a lot. But like wrestling with those things is where I begin to see like, okay, there's like crazy real value in doing things that are symbolic, that are aligning your body with the place you want your soul to go. And I don't mean like dying and going to heaven or dying and going to hell. I mean like as you begin to change and step by step, like follow Jesus into a new humanity, like there's value in taking steps that are symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
Where you say, I do this, like this is the body of Christ. Not literally, but it is like representative of the body of Christ. This is the blood of Christ. This is me dying to self, passing through the waters of death and rising again into the new life that already has happened, but is not yet in its actuality or fullness. Like there's value to all that stuff. There's real legitimate value that at least, even if I can't say, I understand every little in and out of it, I've come a lot further, but I'm still wrestling with different things. Even if I can't say I understand 100% of like every part of this thing, Jesus values it immensely.
Yeah.
To the point that he says, do it. It's that important. And if he does, and it's like, I'm pretty confident that God understands what it means to be human way better than I ever will. Mm. And Jesus certainly is the greatest psychologist that's ever lived, in my opinion. And so it's like, okay, even if I don't understand every little part of it, I'm going to trust that Jesus knows better. But like beyond that, I do think there's a lot of places we could go with what modern psychology has kind of unearthed about making a statement of truth or a statement of identity or acting out a thing that is identity oriented, that is a lot more effective than saying like, I'm trying to quit, but rather saying I used to do that. Like, that's not me anymore though. There's crazy power to that stuff, and not just like metaphysical power. I think there is metaphysical power to that stuff, but there's also like deeply psychological, like brain chemical rewiring stuff that we're beginning to see is really legit.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, like there's a lot of self-help advice out there when you're going to an interview and you don't want to go into that interview with lacking confidence. You want to be the most confident version of yourself possible. And like you said, there's been a lot of studies done where self-affirmations in like even doing something like a Superman pose in front of a mirror before walking into that interview, like it's an external action that does have internal effects, and so I think it's absolutely a thing.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Tony, my question is there a liturgical act? Is there a liturgy, a ritual that you you find particular like resonance with?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it really is communion, without a
Mm.
doubt. To the point that, gosh, when I was younger, and even I'm not even talking about when I was a kid, I'm talking about even earlier in my own Christian walk before I feel like I went through the levels of discipleship that I have gone through and am continuing to go through. Communion was always the thing that, hey, we do this. This is what we're supposed to do, and we're going to take some time to remember what this is all about. That's great, you know? But for me, the importance of it really changed one day during Bible school, where I had a couple of teachings on an understanding of the historical significance of not just communion, but the whole week of Passover that Jesus has the week before he dies, right? And what like different events that took place every single day of that week, and how it all led up to the ultimate destination of Friday, and or really ultimately 3 days later after Friday. But and there's just so many aspects of communion week, or the whole week, that really made me realize, oh, this really is just like the Jews like celebrate Passover as a historical significance that we escaped the tyranny of Egypt and Pharaoh. This is something from thousands and thousands of years ago, but good Jews to this day, that's still a part of their traditions, right? And it's like, oh, there's actually a legitimate reason here. This isn't arbitrary. This isn't just emotional. It is authentic. Even though it is something that we repeat on a consistent basis, this isn't just Santa Claus handing out presents. There is something authentic here that is so important for me not to just remember, but to connect with internally every time we do this external tradition. Uh, and so, yeah, I think communion hits it hard for me to the point that like today, if I did communion tomorrow, it's hard for me to not get emotional and feel something internally when doing that external sacrament of communion. Honestly,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. I mentioned the Lord's Prayer earlier
mm-hmm.
for me, but like I also mentioned baptism, and that one has been rolling around in my head quite a lot lately. When I was baptized as a kid, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea whatsoever. It was
Yeah,
like, I guess it saves me, maybe. I don't know. All my friends are doing it. I get a free Bible with my name on it if I do it. So I had no idea what I was doing.
yeah,
But like I said, coming into adulthood and going through all these biblical training programs and Bible school and studying all this stuff and really coming to see this in a whole, like a different light, and seeing the weight of it. And again, we really should do an episode on baptism because it's so cool.
mm-hmm.
But my kids, my son is 13, my daughter's 10, and they, we go to a church and they're involved with a youth group, and they have been asking for some years if they could be baptized.
Mm-hmm.
And for some years, I was like, no, you can't, because you don't know what you're doing. Like,
Yeah.
you're not old enough to understand what you're doing. And I'm not telling you that if your kids are younger than 8 or 13, that you can't let them be baptized. That's not what I'm saying, dear listener. But I knew my kids didn't understand enough. And I've been teaching them from Genesis, just like starting at Genesis through the Bible. And I think at the time we were in First Samuel, or no. At the time when they were really starting to ask really consistently, we were only through like the first parts of Exodus. We weren't even through the actual event of the Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a handful of really, really important events that baptism layers onto. It was like, I need to get through enough of the history of the Jewish people, enough of this text, even if we don't make it all the way through to the end of the Bible before you get baptized. I need to get through enough of these things so that you understand the weight of what you're linking up to.
Yeah.
Like the heritage of like hundreds of thousands, millions upon millions of Yahweh followers and
Mhm.
Jesus followers who went through this thing, and then what it represents. And it's like, baptism throws back, like, obviously to Jesus' own baptism, but also to his death and to his resurrection. Then it goes all the way back to then it goes before that to what John the Baptist does himself. But then before that into events in Ezekiel, into events in the Babylonian exile. Before that in the book of Joshua, and then the book of Exodus, and then all the way back into multiple levels in Genesis itself, including the creation narrative. So there's so many different things that I was like, you need to understand this stuff, because it's
Mhm.
like you need to understand what you're signing up for and what you're saying to God and to the world when you do this. And finally, like, we had gotten to a point where I could connect a bunch of dots for them and explain and be like, okay, do you still want to do this? Like, understanding what you're saying and what you're standing for. And they said yes. And then I got to baptize them.
Yeah, there's a
My
severity to it for sure. That's
Yeah,
awesome though.
my church did a big, baptismal thingy, and you can optionally baptize your own kids, and then I kind of crafted a little liturgy where I was asking them particular questions, and they were declaring them to God and the room, and like us and themselves, that they were like, yes, I'm doing this. Yes, I'm doing this. Yes, I stand for this. Yes, I'm committing to this. And that was really cool. That's been on my head and my heart since then. So I think baptism kind of has a special place for me for like right now. But on the other hand, I've like today I've prayed the Lord's Prayer twice. So I guess that's probably the one that has a more dominant, consistent,
Yeah.
ritualistic presence in my life.
Yeah, but that totally makes sense. And I think the way that I would want to challenge someone listening to us right now to really apply this in their day-to-day life is like an understanding that, so take the baptism that you're talking about with you and your kids. Like, we would like to think and hope that if someone is going down that Christian journey in truly engaging in understanding the severity, like I mentioned, of the history that you just put there, like, you are plugging into this is not a small feat. This is very big, very large. And so it would be nice to think that, on that day of baptism, you have those words. Your kids had those words that they were affirming, right? That you were asking if they agree to this, if they agree to that, and they were externally affirming this. But internally, you would like to think that the internal matched that external on that day. I think that's where, when we are at our best, is when our internal does match the external. And in a day of baptism, that's awesome. But the challenge here is on those days when the internal is not there, like, remembering the days that they were there, your kids remembering that baptism and the effort that their father went through, so they had an actual level of understanding to create that moment of opportunity for them where the internal did match their external word. That being able to have a consistent external ritual, that can help you, that can help all of us on the days when we are not feeling it, when we are not there emotionally. We don't want to go off the deep end, like you mentioned earlier, of just going through the motions, and there that can come a time, but realizing there is value to having something externally placed in your life that is a ritual that does remind you, hey, not only is this the direction I want to be pointed in, but it can remind me of, like, I have had great moments. Even if today's not one of those great moments, I'm going to trust that those great moments will continue. And I'm not going to let today's negative emotions bring down my external actions, you know? And so, like, I think that's where the importance of liturgy comes in. And it, like we've said, guys, it's so easy to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I want to say one other, not even tangent, but to go parallel with this, I do think that the swinging away from liturgy I can't say that word now. The swinging away from these traditions so hard that the church has done for so long, because of the fear of going through emotions, has created a dangerous and risky culture and dynamic amongst young Christians. And what I mean by that is, if you're not careful, you can have an incredible spiritual high one day. Like maybe a guest speaker comes to your church or your youth group, and there's just incredible prayer and incredible this, incredible that, and you just feel such an emotional connection with God, which is not a bad thing in and of itself whatsoever. But if that emotion, that experience that you had, if you're not careful, that becomes the thing that you start pursuing over and over and over again. Yeah, I haven't been feeling that great lately because I haven't had a connection with God lately. I just need that next emotional high. I need that next emotional connection. That creates a culture where so many young Christians see that, and then there's a level of not authenticity going on with that, and that can make them walk away from the church because they get frustrated of this is all just emotional nonsense. This is all just spiritual mumbo jumbo. And it's
Yep.
real easy to fall prey to the charismatic person who is creating the next emotional high after the next emotional high for the people that he's performing for. It all becomes super external as well on that side of things. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I see so much benefit in, yes, aligning our external words with what we're feeling, but man, understand that when you're not feeling it, those external words, those external actions, those rituals do have a healthy place in keeping us on track.
That's good. It's good. And I will say, we try to give like landing gear
Yeah.
here with the easy approach. And so I'll say if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, I would like to line up with God's view of how a human being can change and take advantage of ritual or liturgy. I obviously there's there's the big ones. There's the sacraments, it's baptism and the Lord's Prayer and so on and so forth. But there's so many other things like the morning routine I described for myself earlier, like Tony's gym ritual, or even these moments where I have to consistently go back and pray the Lord's Prayer again and again and again to realign myself with commitments from the past and like clarity from the past in the fog of the present. I think what you can do is pick even just like one small physical ritual this week. Maybe that's something as simple as like, I'm going to pray the Lord's Prayer, like word for word, and try to mean every word of it.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna light a candle the next time I try to spend time with God. Or I'm gonna kneel. I'm gonna like kneel down on my knees the next time I petition God, or the next time I need peace from God, or whatever else. It's not a matter of we do these things and God views us differently, but it is a matter of changing our posture toward God and realigning ourselves with past choices and past commitment and past clarity. So yeah, yep, there we go. Good talk. Good talk, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd also throw out another suggestion out there. There are very easy to pick up and put down daily devotionals that are out there. If that's where you are in life, where you're like, hey, I want that extra step. There are a whole spectrum of them where you just read sometimes as little as one paragraph every single day. And even on, especially just like the gym, guys, especially on the days when you don't want to, or life is distracting you away from it, making a commitment to like a daily devotional, making a commitment to the Lord's Prayer, making a commitment to any of these quote unquote external actions that Nate and I have been referring to. The commitment is what matters, and that's what's going to keep you moving forward, and hopefully moving us forward into areas of growth, both in our spiritual life and in our personal relational life as well.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, guys, thank you once again for joining us for another easy question.
Super easy topic.
Super easy stuff. We like to keep it light around here. Yeah, you know what? Join us next time when we challenge some other major divide between Protestantism and Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, or who knows? Maybe we'll get into baptism next time. Finally, I think I've alluded a couple times that I'd like to get into that. So one of these days we'll get there.
That ground is watered.
Yeah. Yep. Y'all, just one more time, thank you for listening. And until next time, take it easy.